Remember in the early 70s, we spoke of the ping-pong diplomacy, bringing the United States and China together. Now, apparently, we're speaking of vaccine diplomacy. Yes, talk to anybody about this a year ago, it would sound the craziest thing in the world. But yes, Honduras, for example, was perhaps right after the United States announced they'd be moving their embassy to Jerusalem. Honduras did the same. Now, Honduras and Israel obviously have a very close relation. So Honduras got a certain amount of the Israeli the vaccines in Israel, Chad, other countries, and yes, it could come to a time when such a country, Honduras, Chad, or any other, would be seated at the Security Council and a place where usually votes are against Israel, that'd be pro-Israel. Moving the embassies to Jerusalem, all that is important, and everything has to be put in the context of elections. We're 4 weeks away from elections, and anything can play that way. And yes, it could perhaps show the good relations that Israel has abroad. And if there's a vote in an international body 2-3 weeks from now, in which countries which usually vote against Israel would vote for Israel, it would look good.
You know, what I can't wrap my head around is the numbers. It's 100,000 vaccines for 15 countries. That brings us to around 6,000 vaccines for each country. Not a number that somebody would buy a vote in the UN.
True, but could perhaps show the despair in those specific countries for vaccines. In Israel, as it seems, we have no problem. Anyone coming, I was yesterday, not far from here, in a park in Jaffa, where there's a mobile clinic. You can come and get vaccinated. No need to set appointments or anything. It's very easy here. Apparently, it's much more difficult in any other country. First, for those countries to put their hands on vaccines. Second, to get vaccinated. So yes, it's a small country. It's a small number when compared to the numbers here. Apparently, for those numbers, it's something. For those countries, it's something big.
A word, Jonathan, about the distribution of vaccines a bit closer to home in the Palestinian territories.
So a certain amount has been moved from Israel to the Palestinian Authority. The Palestinians, we have to say, they have a certain amount coming from Russia as well, donated by Russia, but also a small amount, 5,000 or so, have already been distributed from Israel to the Palestinian Authority. Another amount, a few thousands or so, again, are being moved, especially to the health workers in the Palestinian Authority. We know that there was a meeting over the weekend between health officials from Israel and the Palestinian Authority taking place in Ramallah. Following that meeting, a few other 1,000 doses have been moved from Israel to the Palestinian Authority.
Let's see what Benny Gantz, the chairman of Blue and White, and for now, Netanyahu's partner in the coalition, had to say about this initiative. The fact that Netanyahu is trafficking the vaccines of Israeli citizens, which were paid for with their tax money without accountability, shows that he thinks he's running a monarchy, not a state. Jonathan, more criticism from other ministers in the government?
Again, it depends on which party these ministers are. If they come from Likud, then they would say that this shows how successful the Israeli plan is and how successful this government is by creating opportunities and better relations with other countries. No word from them regarding the fact that taxes, vaccines paid by Israelis, by Israeli taxpayers, are now going to other countries. If you're Blue and White, then of course you would be criticizing this move, saying that Israeli money, basically Israeli vaccines bought with Israeli money of Israeli taxpayers, will now be used to vaccinate people in Chad, in Honduras, in the Palestinian Authority, you name it. Of course, it depends on which side of the political spectrum you are. Everything is in context with the elections less than 4 weeks away.
Okay.